Today's recipe is about how to make Sri Lankan deviled potatoes, or which known as the Sri Lankan tempered potatoes. Some of these ingredients may be hard for you to find, therefore I have listed them as optional. But remember, everything adds flavor. When it's come to cooking and dining, I know some of us doesn't like some of the flavors that we use in our dishes. Therefore, you can either not use them or maybe use it in small quantities and see whether you like. Start with washing the potatoes properly and then either use a pressure cooker or a deep pot to boil the potatoes. If you are using a pressure cooker for the first time, please read the manual before you use the pressure cooker. While the potatoes are getting boiled, you can start with cutting your ingredients, onions, garlic and the rest. Once all the ingredients are cut, you can set them aside on a plate and start making the caramelized onions. If you love Sri Lankan cooking and if you are living overseas, most of our Sri Lankan spices you can find it either in a Sri Lankan or Indian grocer. To temper or to caramelize the onions, either use a wok or a pan and heat it up. Make sure that you heat up the pan in a lower flame because we don't want anything to get burned as soon as we put on the pan. Once the pan is heated, add about 2 to 4 tablespoons of olive oil or any vegetable oil that you use for cooking and then let it heat a bit. Once the oil is heated, you can slowly start adding the ingredients one by one. Here I started adding the onions first because I like to add the mustard seeds later. But some of you may like to add it at the beginning and there is no harm in that. When the onions start to cook with a pale pink color, then you can slowly start adding the garlic, the curry leaves, and all the rest of the ingredients that you have, except for the tomatoes and the green chilies. I'll be adding them at the last once the onion is cooked well and when it's closer to be caramelized, because when you do add the tomatoes at last, it gives you more flavor. You can let the onion cook on a lower flame until it turns into golden brown and then leave it on for another few minutes before adding the tomatoes. As shown in the videos, you can see the onion is getting cooked, turning it into golden brown slowly, and then when it becomes a little bit darker brown like caramelized, you know the onions are ready to add the tomatoes. Here I'll be adding the tomatoes and the green chilies and mix it well, and we'll close it from a lid to cook for another maybe 1 to 2 minutes maximum. Once the onions are done, then finally you can start by adding the mustard seeds. Since as I said I like to add it later at the end, so I'll be adding it at this point, and then the chili flakes, and then finally little bit of turmeric powder. So turmeric powder is really good for your health. It kills a lot of germs as well. So in my case, I add little bit of turmeric powder and then mix it well and leave it aside. At this point, you can switch off the stove and let the onions aside to cool down a bit. While you get your onions cooked, that is enough time for the potatoes to get cooked. So at this point, if you are using a pressure cooker, please remember to release the pressure from the cooker and then maybe let it run under cold water for a little longer. So you know that you can open the pressure cooker safely. I feel like in cooking there is no set rules. The beauty of cooking is finding a balance of the flavors that you like. Therefore, even when you watch any of these YouTube videos, you can decide what you like to add and what you don't want to. And here we cut the potatoes into cubes and then get it ready to mix it with the caramelized onions. Once all the potatoes are cut, set aside and then heat up the caramelized onions again a little bit, and then you can add a little bit of salt to it. I don't want to add a lot of salt in here because I want to try and see whether it's up to my palate later on, and if it's not, remember you always can add more. When you are adding the potatoes, there's two things that you need to remember. First is that you need to remember the potatoes are already boiled, therefore it doesn't have to get cooked again. So this is only about mixing the potatoes and the caramel onion. And also the second thing is, since it is properly boiled, the chance of getting it mashed is high. Therefore, you have to be very gentle when you are tipping it over. Once it mixed well, then you can taste and see whether all the seasonings and the flavors are up to your palate. At this point, if you think that you need more salt, then you can add a little. The tempered potatoes, also known as devil potatoes, goes with many other Sri Lankan dishes, especially with rice and curry. It also can consume with breads, lots of kinds of breads, including paratha, normal bread, and Lebanese bread as well. I hope that you enjoy this video and hoping to see you soon.